The AI adoption playbook that you've always been looking for. I'm not kidding. Those who know me, they know that I'm not just saying these things just because it's fancy to say that or so. I'm really not kidding. This episode with Dimitra Retsina is really like a playbook. She explained every step in the adoption journey of the company that she's working for at the moment in phases, like 5 phases, which are fear, push, pull, run, hold. She goes through every phase of what happened when she introduced AI tools in the product engineering design organization of the company that she's working for right now. Dimitra Retsina is a product leadership consultant. So she goes into companies as an interim product leader. The company that she's talking about is Sana Commerce, which is a B2B commerce platform. And there, in the role of the chief product officer, the role of the CPO, she had the assignment to create a product organization that runs on the product operating model, and at the same time, speed up velocity, which she took as the greatest chance to introduce AI tools and AI tooling into the product design engineering organization. And in this episode, she takes us from fear and first resistance, which was quite big, to how she actually step by step introduced those tools and the space that she created down to how they are using it right now and what is important to hold the quality that they have achieved. And as a very great nugget here, on top of that, or bonus, let's say, we also talk a little bit about the value of AI, like using AI to create value for your customers, when to use it and when not, and what is important to consider when you want to use AI as a feature to provide value for your customers. Listen in, and yeah, I'm like, my brain has exploded, and I want to hear if you feel the same. I learned a lot in this episode. Enjoy. Dimitra, welcome.
Nice seeing you, Busha.
Yeah, thank you for saying yes to my ask if you want to talk more about the AI adoption or transformation, or however we call this in this new world of Sana Commerce.
It's excitement that I'm having this conversation.
Your excitement, my excitement. I was so excited. I met you at the Product Mastery Conference in Amsterdam, and you were telling me, yeah, we're just going through, like it was like a small thing. Yeah, we're just going through the AI adoption. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Tell me more. And you were like, yeah, we did XYZ. I don't want to spoil it. And I was like, you know what? I want to learn more. So maybe, hey, would you be open to talk to me about that? And let's record it. And thankfully you said,
absolutely, yes.
Cool. Maybe let's start with your introduction. Like, who are you? What are you doing? For whom are you doing? Who is Sana Commerce? And what is all this about that we're like, what is Sana Commerce about? And why did they want to start any kind of AI adoption stuff?
Yes.
Yeah,
so I will start with myself. I lead product and technology. Normally in B2B SaaS companies that are undergoing transformation within private equity environments. My mandate typically is, take the product and technology and turn this into measurable value creation engine. That's pretty much what it is about. So what I've been asked time and time again is to increase the commercial impact of product, or take fragmented setups and create from that scalable product platforms, basically linking also product decisions to EBITDA, revenue, retention, sort of the value creation drivers for private equity value, and moving organizations from output to outcome driven. And this was exactly also the mandate at Sana. So I was first hired with a mandate to introduce the company to the product operating model, focus on outcomes, and gradually the scope expanded with AI transformation in the mix, basically expediting speed and decision quality, alongside with how do you create an organization that drives better commercial outcomes. So that was the beginnings of it. A bit of Sana. Sana is an e-commerce platform. The title that I received was that of CPO. I have fully owned strategy and execution for product, research and development experience, design experience, product operations, engineering, and product ops. So the whole shebang, and basically elevating product trio and product operating model to the C-suite level and making sure that that is realized further down. Sana is 25-year-old company. So it's not a startup. There's a lot of, pre-existing states and eras that they have gone through. I inherited a product and engineering organization of about 150 people, and it has been also distributed with multiple cultures. So it had also that context. And in the era of, B2B commerce, where it's quite a lot of competition these days, differentiation was part of the problem statement that I needed to resolve.
How big is Sana in general?
I think we're about 450 people, and product engineering is about 150, and that grew also, of course. We did quite a lot of investment also on the data side. So yeah, it's a growing organization still. What was the trigger, you asked?
Yes.
Well, I would say the main trigger was the needs of the ICP. So in the beginnings of the journey was realizing. So one of the main first things that I did was repositioning of the product and basically seeking differentiation levers for the product itself. So the beginning of what AI can mean for Sana was mainly driven from what value could we create for the new definition of the AICP we were going after, which was manufacturing B2B enterprise businesses. And secondary to that, also almost in parallel, was the modernization and the need for speed for product engineering capabilities. So as I said,
on the one hand, there were needs from your own customers that you couldn't, or that you could serve better with AI functionality. And on the other hand, it was a lot about speed and velocity.
Correct. So it was both customer-facing value as well as internal acceleration of the transformation that we would need to we needed to have in order to accommodate even the ICP needs. So that was the two-step, let's say, play that was necessary.
And when was that?
So I took over the CPO role in January 2025. So yeah, roughly a little bit over a year now. So it has been quite an intense journey, and inheriting a well-established B2B commerce platform that undergoes through an ICP redefinition, and at the same time reinventing our platform architecture to accommodate that value with an existing team. That all was part of what we did over the year.
Okay. I mean, I remember the refactoring phases, times at different companies that I was in, and refactoring or even replatforming the whole thing in general takes like at least a year. And then you were doing that plus AI adoption in the company. Oh my God.
Yeah,
okay.
It has been quite a journey.
How did it start? So what were the start? Like, how did the start look like, as in like, who was involved? Who was like, yeah, let's do that? And who was like, oh my God, please don't. And how did it look like? What was the atmosphere like?
So I would say that my beginning was, I started with a lot of appetite to expedite our delivering of differentiation value. When I started realizing, actually, I cannot move fast enough with the practices we had internally. And the background to that was we had a very good, a very strict, and very, I don't know what attribute I should put, but as a security information officer that was very passionate about his job. And that had spread a lot of fear about even the usage of AI. So there I was enthusiastically talking about how can we move faster with AI, whereas everybody in the engineering was fearing even to touch it. They didn't want to touch it. So the first phase for me was just to make sure that legal was on board, security information officer was on board, IT, that they would be supporting this, and of course having the stakeholders buy in. Because as much as I wanted to put everybody on that fast vehicle, it would not be possible unless those people would not create more bottlenecks in that transition. So that was the very first phase. So yes.
How did you do that? How did you get them on board?
Well,
lots of convincing,
a lot of meetings, a lot of conversations, showing what it is basically that would cost us if we wouldn't. And also I would say that also Gartner's Magic Quadrant for commerce platforms played a good role, because it gave me also a lot more arguments to be able to convince stakeholders. I wouldn't say that was never a problem, but more InfoSec, that this is beyond the limitations that they have ever realized, that the market moves and we cannot afford to stay behind. And of course, that was then supported by the CEO and the management team, which cleared the way for us.
Okay, so there was a strong management support.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is so interesting, isn't it? Like any kind of change dies if the management doesn't support it, but it accelerates as soon as they push it, right? And as soon as they make everything or clear the way, as you said, for change.
Correct. And cool. And I would say the first change was changing our ISO 27001, our information security protocol. That was the first big change to make sure that everybody understands, okay, this is a new era we are navigating, and this is how we are going to be treating information, which needs to be, okay, we need to put together protocols and processes in place to actually embrace this new reality. And remember that a year ago, we wouldn't have this chaos that is happening now with the speed that everything is happening, right?
So you were working with a security manager to create this new protocol?
Yes. I have to say that I by title, I'm a CPO, but I am the stakeholder carrying the CTO role as well. So yeah, I had a saying on how we would be managing information, and also influence the workflows around it.
Okay, cool. So that was the first step. Convince legal, security, IT that it's necessary, have the management back you and clear the way and create security protocols together with the security manager.
Basically. And at that time, I also claimed the data engineering. That was by that time global function service for servicing the whole company. I took it under my wing because obviously without data we wouldn't be able to build AI connected value. So I took over the data team and we started redesigning our data architecture and our governance around data.
And that was when?
That was
like how many months?
January is when I set everything in motion. I joined the company in December as a VP of product. January, I was given the title and I had the time to present my plans. And the moment I got the go ahead, everything started flowing.
Okay. And that was quite fast, I think.
Yes, we moved very fast from then on. So then the moment I could evolve the data layer, then IT was on board. Then the next stage for me was to get the team behind it. And remember, it was the phase where by then they were in the fear of, we're not going to touch this, we don't trust it. InfoSec tells us we're not allowed to. So there was a lot of resistance from that side. If I were to tell you the journey emotion, the emotional journey, it was first fear, then it was push, then it was pull. then run, and now hold.
By them.
This is literally the journey over the last months. So we were, from fear,
push,
pull,
run,
and hold.
run, hold. And that is the whole engineering team that felt this way?
Yeah. So
you?
That's pretty much what we all experience.
Okay.
So the fear was, we're not touching it. So I had to overcome that in the beginning. I started.
And that was because of the security.
Yes. So what I did is because I took over the data infrastructure and I wanted to rebuild some of the data pipelines. And I had a very, very technically curious data analyst that had shown a lot of interest in data engineering. I gave him tools for him to actually execute in an agentic way data pipeline refactoring.
Which tool?
I gave him, he chose, I gave him Cursor, Windsurf, and Devin, and he chose for Devin because he was not yet comfortable with Python scripting. So that is the first thing he tried. And he loved it because he could delegate and meanwhile was doing his, data analytics work. And, he would go back and very much delegating agentic coding, which was great. Because basically I showcased to the rest of the engineers, look how fast and how good result we can get if you also start to trust these tools. And,
So you had this one curious and open-minded person who became the example case with the others.
And he was not an engineer by nature. So he was not resisting. He was actually embracing the fact that he could enter that world by utilizing these tools. And that helped massively because I could showcase, look, and of course I did my own coding, AI assisted, and I was showing to the product engineers, look, this is what you can do. If I do it, you can. Then I kicked off a bit of a experiment, like, okay, I secured with IT enterprise licenses for a few tools, mindful on the sensitivity that was already there. So having enterprise licenses was a prerequisite.
For, I guess, Claude.
At the time, Claude was not the big in people's attention. We got Windsurf, Cursor, Devin, as I mentioned. And in parallel, we started doing more with prototyping tools. So we did secure an enterprise license to work with Virtual V0. We didn't end up actually working with it, but I can tell more about that. But nonetheless, IT was on board. The legal had pre-vetted pools. And then we set up I think it was like 3 days or so, where anybody could get any tool they wanted. We split them up in small projects and created small teams and then go ahead. And at the end of the 3 days, we could see what it is that people built and what it is that they could achieve, sort of testing which tools they liked as well. So we position it as a assessment cycle.
And they were open for it?
They were, but very critical. But very, very critical.
Okay. Are we still in the fear phase? Or
we are in the
push phase?
We started entering the push phase. So they were fearing, they didn't want to touch it. So now I'm pushing it. Like, okay, we're going to take 2 days. You need to assess.
They're still critical, but said, okay, we will try, but we don't believe this thing. We don't trust this thing.
At the end of these 2 days, I'm going to tell you we don't want to work with it. That was pretty much the emotion.
Okay.
And that's, at the end, of course, some teams were successful. Some were not successful at all.
What does it mean to be successful?
So after the 3 days, each team obviously had a goal to achieve. And they needed to show that they could achieve, or at least, if not the goal, that a path to the goal, right? That they would be able to see the light. And there was, of course, one of the projects, we were lacking a lot of documentation, like a 20-year-old company with a lot of people. It's a very unique situation at Sana. We have people that have been in the company for 20 years. So they know the product ins and outs. So the documentation lives in their head, not necessarily everything documented. But of course, I had the intention of adjusting the platform architecture. So I needed that to be crystallized somewhere that you can actually see and be able to redesign. So one of the projects was automatically generate documentation from the code base. There we started seeing, we used, I believe, Cursor at the time for that experiment. We had different tools for different projects. And we saw massive hallucination, like coming up with components we didn't have. And, it was like, okay, I don't know about
Not
that.
surprised. And I bet the engineers were like, we told you it's not gonna work.
Yes, but at the same time, they hated documentation. So they thought, hey, you know what? Okay, it's hallucinating, but
let's make it
what
work.
if? So they started seeing the potential of, okay, if I steer it better, because then I had one architect, really, really good architect, and he started thinking, okay, what can I do to actually steer it more? And he played with it, like he really, for 3 days, gave it its all. And then he came back with, okay, there are limitations, but at least I don't have to create these documents. I can edit and, I can, tune rather than create from scratch, which is already much better than, Dimitra is on my back to generate all these things. So people started talking about things that they could do, which previously they wouldn't be able to or hated doing. So that was an interesting moment. And we were still at the stage of a push. And that was where I said to them, you can take the shovel and keep digging, or you can accept that there is a machine next to you, a excavator that can do a lot of work for you. You need to decide whether you take the shovel or the excavator as a tool to work with. And at the end of the day, you need to realize that the market is moving and they're using the excavator. If we don't, we stay behind and you stay behind. So I started talking to them about a moment that they could imagine themselves being in a market that a shovel is not enough for themselves. So it started to become, okay, it's more personal if I will stay behind, then, So I started talking to them about the opportunity that they have within Sana for them to become engineers of today's reality. Otherwise, they would stay behind, and that's not a good, future for them. So we did a lot of that talk. And then we also did, at the same time, as I mentioned, we were building a lot of value. The product organization was moving. We needed to deliver, differentiating value quite fast to support the product repositioning, right? By then, we had a new ICP positioning. So strategic plans, those need to be created and executed fast. So I have to say that I probably did something tricky there, pushed a lot the timeline. So if you go with a shovel, you will go slow. If you go with the excavator, you can go faster. So you choose. The timeline doesn't change. So that became a little bit more of, okay, now we have to use it so that otherwise we will never be able to make it, right?
So you gave very tight deadlines so that they had to take the excavator.
Correct. It was, I would say, quite risky, right? Because people cut corners. You need to be staying on top of that a lot. I will also be the first one to say that, AI tools, yes, help in productivity on many things, but they do not take away the design phase work or the review phase work, right? The planning or the governance or the good architecture, these are still there and they're hairy problems. So you cannot skip those. You can speed up things that can be generated automatically. But
when you say design process, you mean like the architecture
yeah, architecture design, right? Absolutely. So that, in terms of engineering, I would say has been, they could. So once the architecture design is there and the experience design is there, they can expedite producing and working artifacts. And then, of course, the review phase of that is still a bottleneck. You cannot, again, omit that part of the workflow. So some parts you can expedite, but not all. So you have to also balance with how much can you expedite or push the deadline you give in a realistic way, because you cannot skip the architecture or the experience design, validation of the experience, or the quality of the thing that you're producing.
That's so interesting that you say that. So in other interviews, so I'm doing these interviews with different people, right? And in other interviews, that came up a lot as well. So like, yeah, we're super fast in building now. And some companies were also super fast in UX design part that you mentioned, or in prototyping or figuring out what to build within a month instead of 3 months, for example. But so many people have mentioned the review part, that now there's so much code that needs to be reviewed. Many mentioned these things like architecture and government. They didn't explicitly mention it, but they called it engineering process. Like the engineering process still stays the same, kind of. And I hear this again now. This is super interesting. Like this comes up like a pattern now. And also the validation of what you have built, if that's the right thing, if it really worked in a way that you wanted. You're the first who mentions it. Interestingly, on LinkedIn, there's this whole thing, right? So like this whole group of people who keep saying that, like, if you don't know what to build and if you don't know if the thing that you have built has worked or not, you're still a feature factory, just faster with AI. Then interestingly, you're the first who mentions it. Okay, so fine. Thank you.
Funny. In this phase where I was pushing, there has been an area where we could harvest faster results, right? I can definitely name several things, like we did reduce by 40% execution time on our QA automation, like massive benefit, because now it was a project that was kept being postponed. A company that is 20-year-old has made choices in the past, right? And they have a whole suite of automated tests. And manual tests as well, right? And there is a lot of investment if you want to port it to a newer technology, even though you know that the execution time of those tests will be much more faster because this new technology allows that. You don't necessarily take, as a CTO or a CPO, the hit of that type of investment. But now it was possible.
So you were like, Sana was doing manual QA
and automated
and automated QA, and with AI you reduce the QA execution time by 40%
by porting the existing also automation tests to a new technology that allows us to run those automated tests 40% faster.
Wow.
We also reduced by 50% our suite of manual tests, because of course we have manual tests like everybody does, but we did reduce them by 50% within a month.
Within a month?
Yes. So our QA team got the mission for them to improve, things that were keeping us back. And these were very clear benefits that we saw quite, fast and early, and it was measurable. Everybody could see it. So I have to say that one of the programs I started when I was at Sana was what I called AI in position. So basically, for each role within my organization, I identified what kind of jobs to be done, where, that position was doing, and seeking ways to augment that with AI in different ways. The very beginnings of that was a sparring partner, like everybody did, right? Give them a ChatGPT account, and everybody would have now a sparring partner to, I don't know, discuss the plans or what have you, of what it is that, break down or seek missing elements. But, once they had access to that, they started building trust. And that was when the pull phase started, right? Because then they could understand, okay, I'm in control and I can tune it. I can give it sufficient context. And now I understand how to do that to get better hole dug for me with this new excavator machine that I'm having, instead of playing around and not getting anywhere, right? So that accelerated their role. And again, for each role, I started procuring tools to accelerate them. Like for research and design and product management, I added Dovetail. Hearing, they could not decide which one they wanted. So in the beginning, we said Cursor and Windsurf. You pick whatever you want. The majority these days seem to prefer Cursor. I see some elements of signals that they start seeking Claude. So the companies should continue accommodate the evolution of how they understand their role will be accelerated. For the user designers, we took a much more rigorous approach. So we tested a variety of tools. We did test Visily, Lovable, Replit, Vercel, V0, and Builder.io.
No framework?
No, not at the time. No, it didn't, so one of the things, so we had a few specific things that we were looking for. We were looking for how can we accelerate prototyping, but it's easy to do that when you start from zero, right? For startups, of course, no problem. But for a company that has an experience of 20 years of product, what I call sometimes also UX depth along with it, right? So we talk a lot about tech debt, but this is a lot of UX depth.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. That can kill a company. And I saw it once when I was working for an agency. But anyway.
So there's also sales debt. There's all kinds of debt. But that specific for me was really important. Like, yes, I want a tool that would adhere to our design system, evolve and improve the experience of an existing application that would predictably be steered on how you evolve that experience, and that it would integrate really well with the other tools that we're having. So we adopt Figma. So, can it work with our Figma designs well? Because otherwise we generate work in another part of the workflow for the UXers. Interesting enough, so we did a really nice assessment with Vercel V0. We really liked it. But we found out two things. One, compared to Builder.io, it integrated, at least at the moment, less good with Figma. So reproducing the designs for Figma was less accurate. And secondly, which was the biggest, for me, reason to not go for it, was that they wanted us to commit to a year of contract. And I was like, yeah, this AI thing moves so fast. I don't want to commit for a full year. I do want enterprise license, but they would only give it with an annual commitment. And I thought, well, that's not working, because today, yes, they perform really well, but the way these tools actually evolved was indicating to me that they will, other people will also move as fast. And the other thing I would say is none of the tools, which is also the feedback I gave to Vercel, none of the tools were providing designs based on best practices, because they don't have that. They are trained on top of what is openly created within their platforms, but they don't, right? So they don't have the usage data to know whether design A versus design B gets you a better outcome.
Isn't that the job of the designer to understand that?
Yes, but I also don't want the designer to reinvent the wheel either. So if because now you have a lot of canned experience. That's what you see across the board.
Especially in e-commerce, right? It's quite similar.
So if you wanna build something, I need to depend on a designer that will steer so closely, or I will go fast. And I'm like, yeah, but I do want to go fast, but I don't want to reinvent the wheel or spend so much time to steer a tool which is supposed to be saving me time.
That's a very, very interesting thought. Yes.
Right. So none of them does that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the companies that do have the data, think of user behavior tracking platforms. They probably do not have the right to use the data to train models for what's best designs.
And even if it's not their main positioning, right? This is not what they do, basically. That's not what they sell.
No.
So even if they had...
But it could be. So if you try to see, where can you position? What is that unique thing that you have? You have user behavior data. Where can you use the user behavior data?
Okay, anyone who watches this and works in one of the data analytics companies, hey, here's an idea.
I did have that conversation actually with one of them.
But anyway, let's not go too far into that. Yeah. So I'm curious. Like,
so
which one did you pick?
So
what was the result?
We chose for Builder.io, and we're okay with it. I think there will be a moment where can reassess, but at the end of the day, it is affordable. It does the work, integrates really well with Figma, and I now have all of my UXers, really expert users of it, all of my product managers, even engineers, and we even have professional services.
Okay, wait, I have a question. Figma has Figma Make.
Yes.
Why did you go for Builder plus Figma instead of using Figma Make?
Because at the moment we chose, there was not enough maturity on Figma Make for us to go for it.
Okay, cool. And that's why that's one of the reasons what you just said, right? So it's moving so fast. Like, I don't want to come out for a year. Maybe next year we will ditch Builder, or in 2 months we will ditch Builder because Figma Make is good, is super good now. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm. I see also another value for, where you can actually be helped from a tool like Figma with AI layer on top of it, because designing for outcome means that you need to design your event tracking, right? And tie that to KPIs. So you still need to do like the full circle. If I would be them, that would be an area. So if you're Figma, if you're hearing this, anyway, so yeah, so and professional services also is using it because we have a lot of implemented bespoke workflows for our customers. We can actually really good steer those with Builder.io, so we can articulate better what solutions you can build with our e-commerce platform. Yeah, I have to say,
which is a question that I want to ask you later on anyway, like, how do you use the setup now? But let's continue with the phases. So that's the pull phase, and then comes the run phase, and then the hold phase. What happened in the run phase?
So everybody's now using it, all for their unique roles. I'm also allowed to tell you that we are every month tracking what is the AI Gen AI assisted code that my product team is building with AI tools and with Cursor specifically. And I can say that 60% of more than 60% actually consistently committed code match AI suggestions. Not 100%. Obviously, there's a review process and there's changes to it. But there's definitely a code assisted process that expedites what it is that my engineering team can produce, which I find a good measurement of adoption, not necessarily a productivity benefit that would justify changes in headcount. Also, not to make sure not to misinterpret the number, because, like I said, the architectural work, the review work, all of that actually hard engineering principles and skill sets still are important, and we do them.
I have a question about this number and metric. Theoretically, the code could be bad, like the code that that tools
Correct.
suggest happen to be bad as well, especially for those that start new with the start new. Well, wait, the sentence doesn't work, but you know what I mean. Like they are new into coding with
Correct.
AI, kind of thing, and especially for them. But in general, the code can be bad, or the code can be like the code snippet itself might be good, but it doesn't work into the whole
Correct.
exactly. And then it would be better for the engineer not to use that code, and then it's a good thing to
Correct.
not use that code. So what is the benchmark of quality here? If it's because the 60% of committed code matches the AI suggested
Not
code.
1-to-1, right? So, but we can track
Okay.
the origin of it, right? That's why I said there is reviewing and there's changes to it, which is what prevents what you're describing, right?
Okay. So it's not about using the
As is,
code as
yeah.
it comes, but taking the code as a basis
So also
for
when
your
you're
commit.
having an engineering team that produces code, you have different levels of engineers and coders, right? And that doesn't mean that you will not allow a more junior engineer to not produce code, right? You should allow this, but then you have to put the right safeguards to pass through a review process. The depth of that review is what you also need to measure. So how many obligated review rounds, what level of seniority of the engineers that review that, how accurately it matches the specs, and how that code fits into indeed the system. So these are the, like, you don't use the code as it's produced. You do have a process as you always would have had
The
for
engineering
more junior.
process, yeah. It still fits the engineering process. It's just that the code is not manually written 100%, but yeah, AI accelerated written.
And that's also
Okay.
how I see it, and that's how the team sees it, and indeed that's how they run with it. And run with it means they can move faster. The part where the hold is that governance of reviewing that you bake into the process. The hold is also on the engineering lifecycle to make sure that we always will produce better and better code. So we started with very verbose documents, and now we are moving much more aggressively to spec-driven development, much more structural, meeting sort of the life cycle you would normally have. So in a way,
So the hold is basically improve the way we work and make it better.
And now, given the fact that there's a huge adoption and acceptance of the value that this has, at least from productivity point of view for the company, you see also other functions in your organization have an appetite to build stuff and build tools, internal tools to accelerate their workflows. The hold applies.
Now it spreads like a virus.
And the hold applies to that as well, right? So you have to introduce a data governance process. So which data will live where, who gets access to what, still GDPR compliance. So there's a lot of things that go with, allowing people to build their own tools, have your evals, have your quality assurance, measure the accuracy of what it is that you're building along the line. So yeah, that's a bit how it has gone for us.
Fear, push, pull, run, hold.
And then
Okay.
Of course there's the value for the customers. Remember, that was the main trigger for all of this. For us, there also we have a very clear strategy on how we want to deliver that value. Back in 2025, before I joined, the company had already started a portfolio strategy and expanded the product with AI-powered functionality. What changed is 2026 is where we started investing heavily on our data and AI strategy as part of the evolution of the on the functionality we deliver, the value we deliver. But then seeing how AI fits and delivers, accommodates the needs of our ICP, but also understanding our ICP, because we did research, and we are in the space of B2B commerce. Maybe there's no big deal if you give some money to an agent to go and purchase for you, I don't know, a dress, I don't know, that in a B2C scenario. But in a B2B, the stakes are high. You cannot just, delegate decision authority to agentic and, go and sleep well at night. So that experience also has a gradual evolution. And our product strategy understands that, right? And accommodates for that. So for us is, okay, we need to interpret, we need to guide. There's definitely, with a new strategy, a evolution of our product functionality towards guidance for growth, for the buyers and sellers, connecting them to value, and accelerating how they can grow through the platform. But we're doing it with building habits, keeping them in control as far as they feel the need to, and gradually build the functionality ready for it, for automation when that moment will be there. But we're not expediting. And we also do not think that we should be investing on table stakes. For example, instead of search function, let's say investments, we invest in findability. There's a difference, right? So we are releasing a visual parts finder tailored for our manufacturing ICP, and helping our customers navigate a bill of material in a visual way, which, in a machine you can actually see and find the part you need.
So search is one way to help you find the thing that you are looking for, and now you're building different other ways to help your customers.
Everybody has search, right? So, and everybody can have recommended searches and recommended products. So all of that. This table stakes. What we feel is important is to cater to the findability in a way that services the ICP experience. And in our cases, we are focusing on manufacturing. There's spare parts is a big part of that type of business. So there's where we invest AI capabilities for.
So basically, the value for the customer part is the part where you say, we don't just slap AI on everything, but we do with any other feature as well. We start with the customer and try to understand what is their experience, what are they looking for, what are they trying to achieve, and then we see where we can plug in AI in a useful way. I mean, we also have to keep in mind that AI features are expensive, right? Every call costs something. It's not like any other software as a service or any other platform that you can scale to infinity and costs are still very minimal. Any AI call costs us something, so we have to make sure we use it in a place where it makes sense.
Exactly. Right? And you know what's the most expensive asset? Trust. Trust is the most expensive asset. It's not even the API call. Right?
Yeah. I have a very similar conversation with one of my, actually with two clients of mine. One is also working on something that addresses manufacturers and other industry companies. And there's also the topic of, okay, how do they actually trust the result of this when AI is behind it? And the other company is more on the side of how can they trust the results that we give them, that they are accurate. So one is like trust as in accuracy and hallucination. And then there's also the third dimension, which is trust in regards to when I enter my data here, what's going to happen? Where will my data end up? So that's like these dimensions. Yeah, we have the same conversations. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's very easy to build API layers and MCP layers and have agents talk to each other and make orders. That by itself is not the challenge. Is safeguarding that what will happen when you open that Pandora box, that you still will be able to sleep at night. And for us, that's the most important thing, right? So we want to make sure that our customers and their customers, right, the buyers and sellers, are finding value, that they can connect, they are fully in control. So we are not rushing into the AI automation. We're not, pushing. They're not ready for it either.
Yeah.
So we are understanding that, and so we are building first the foundations of them feeling and experiencing the control they're having. And then is the next stage of, okay, what is it that you feel comfortable letting go? Or, providing the level of auditability, the level of transparency, so that trust is not also lost afterwards. So that's, definitely part of how you build this software. Having come from the engineering background and having been in the product arena for a long time now, you never choose the tool, right? You choose the problem. And that is what this is about, understanding where your customers are, and you find them where they are. You can prepare in the background the technology to facilitate a future need, but rushing to it is never a good idea.
Yeah, I agree. I would like to go back to the way how you work now, or the teams work now. And I mentioned the question of, okay, how do they work now compared to before? We had this briefly mentioned the thing about using the prototype to explain what to build, but let's take it from the beginning. So something needs to be built. So, or even before that, right? Somebody has to figure out what needs to be built. So let's just take it from the beginning. How do they work, and how do they use AI in this?
So I introduced the team to product operating model and product TRIA, right? So we use quite a lot of prototyping to even get that type of alignment going. It starts with, we do impact mapping or a product problem solution trees kind of approach. I like layering it on top of the bow tie funnel phases of winning by design. So getting the team to understand what is it that they can steer, where do they see their opportunities, and then navigate to them understanding the problem. Sometimes, therefore, the beginning of using AI starts with looking at, researching the problem space and possible solution space. So looking at the qualitative data or the quantitative data in different ways. So
how would they do that? For example,
well, we did introduce Dovetail. Everything is in there. We're starting surfacing data. We keep putting sort of tags and making sure that the system is well used. We tap into the close loss reasons, close won reasons, the interviews and conversations and RFPs, sort of getting elevated information from the organization and getting that context into the things that can be assessed for where value can be found for the user, where the pain is, survey data, you name it. So there's a composition of information, and there's AI. It's good at it, right? So we use that quite a lot.
And this is super interesting also to mention. Dovetail has been around for quite some time now, and it's been doing exactly this job for at least 6 years, maybe 10. I'm not sure. Before AI was a thing, and before everybody started to build their own rags and systems in how to tweak AI in a way that it doesn't hallucinate and it does give you the real insights and so on and so forth. Instead of looking around, and finding the tools that have been doing it forever, right? Like Dovetail, like just go pick Dovetail. And then there are those claims SaaS is dead because now the AI tools can do everything well. Anyway, not every SaaS is dead. Maybe small SaaS.
I can say that so this is not the first time I introduced Dovetail to my team. So I used it also in previous companies, and I can tell you
this is not sponsored by Dovetail or any other tool, by the way. It's just two nerds nerding out.
Correct. So imagine this. Imagine being in a management team meeting and having a conversation about a pricing.
Promo. Not promo.
So we were discussing about pricing, right? And a general manager was recommending a specific price point for a specific segment. And I'm like, yeah, but our research doesn't say that. And here I was slacking one of my team members. Can you surface the data that we have from our qualitative research that spoke a little bit more about the price elasticity? And while I was in the meeting, and this is like, I don't know, 3 years ago or 4 years ago, I don't know. And we got surfaced right on the spot data points to signal at least, okay, there is more to it, at least worth researching a little bit deeper than going along with a claim from, a well-intended salesperson adjusting the pricing, This is something that these tools can give you also, right? That's where the value is. So we use it, and we use it in combination with other tools and surfacing themes from product customer requests. So we did quite a lot of analysis on that as well, layered on that our segmentation. So being able to make better decisions faster than before is where we use it. So that is in that analysis phase. And then we do impact mapping. So we invite cross-functional people from other parts of the organization to discuss with them, what their thoughts are. Sometimes ideas can come from any part of the organization. So we invite those, and we can show data points from that analysis in that conversation. Makes, less opinionated or less colored discussions. Then once we sort of prioritize what we want to be validating in our experiments, there's where we go to the next cycle of co-creation with customers. So we initiated last summer the Insight Circle. So created a pool of customers that are open to work with us and co-create basically the next versions of Sana functionality. And we work with Margolis, Learn Better Faster. That framework. So we try to decide who to involve in a very targeted way by prioritizing what's called a bullseye customer, right? So we're making sure that who we are inviting to co-create with us has big affinity with the problem or the type of persona we are trying to address, sort of getting much more valuable input. We use prototypes, and we show multiple versions in these discussions.
That you build with Builder.
We build that with Builder.io. We iterate very fast.
On the spot, or are you taking the feedback with you and then iterate and show it to a different
The way
group?
that the team is doing is they don't do the changes on the spot, but we reiterate also with the same customer if need to, with the adjusted version, because we do actually quite a few interviews within the same day. So we're trying to get as much as wide opinion from the bullseye customers as possible in the most efficient way. And after that, sort of we land on the experience we want. So that gets streamlined, with our normal Figma, but it's much better shape than before.
And you get there within a day,
basically.
Yeah,
it's very fast. So we do, well, we are still enterprise. So yeah, you will expect that we are having a couple of days of a cycle to land a design we feel comfortable, but still it's very, very fast.
So from we know what we want to build to this is what we will build, how long does it take now?
Less than a week.
Approximately. Less than a week. And before?
Weeks. I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Like, it depends on the complexity of the problem, right? You're trying to solve.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember, like, we were in Q4 pushing quite hard to deliver for our launch date, and it was like within a week designed interface that then, of course, goes through the development process. There you have, the proper development practices we discussed previously. And what I found an interesting use case for those prototyping experiences, we are using them for demo purposes. Since we are building what we design, it's very fast to have very early conversations with customers as we explain our vision. That's one that we're having. And
So you use the prototypes to explain the vision?
Yeah, because we are building exactly that, right? So it just expedites a bit the cycle, which makes a big difference for sales as well. So
instead of building a small piece of the big thing, you immediately build the big thing as a prototype in Builder.io, so that you can get feedback about the value of what you want to build, basically.
Exactly. We've always done that. Product organizations always done that, right? I have done that. I have let.
Oh, I know quite some that don't do that. Yeah.
Well, there is a difference, right? So you do explain. So you put the right framework, right? So it's not like you're saying this is the whole thing that you're gonna get. This is the concept, and you manage expectations. I have led pre-sales for many years, set up pre-sales as well. So there is definitely a clarity you need to bring straight on what it is that you're showing to them. But it is a conversation, especially for enterprise, to explain this is where we're going. This is the direction we're heading. Makes sense because they also do not move as fast either, right? So it's different for B2C and it's different for B2B enterprise.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then you have this prototype of what it is that you want to build, and then you slice it, I guess.
And there can be changes, small changes, because we do those circles of improvement of the experience. But then it comes again, the use of that approach for our enablement, right? Because again, we can train our field organization on what it is that exactly will be launched in an interactive way. We don't only describe the value that they will receive, they actually see it. It's tangible. I call them as enablement bursts, and as early as possible, making those available so that they can understand what's coming.
They as sales can understand what's coming and can go out and
support
customer success.
Your enablement.
Okay. And then how does it continue? So
then
product managers slice the
we deliver what it is has been developed. So what we are using for enablement is 100% what we are going to be releasing as well, right?
What happened to release in cycles, learn if it works, include the learning into the next cycle, and this kind of iterative
but
work?
We do that. First of all, we put a lot of that in the design phase, because now we can reiterate and co-create with the customers that would be using it. So we put quite a lot of maturing that experience early on in the phase. And again, like any SaaS product, you deliver. And then if there is a necessity for an adjustment because of the learning of that, of course you measure, right? You measure the usage. You always will have a small sample. And then when you understand how it's been used better once it's live, then you go back and refactor, then.
Okay. And that still means for you, like, shipping the whole thing and then seeing if everything works the way that you had planned, because the iterative part, you moved upstream to the design phase instead of the development phase.
But I don't think it's any different than it has always been, right? So also previously we had a lot of design, and then we built, and then we released, and with a good assumption of what we thought would work. And then we went back and, based on the learnings, we adjusted. Nothing changes there.
Well, I think that's also a bit of a difference between B2B and B2C, because in B2C, it's easier for you to really ship those little pieces to production and then learn from these little pieces. And then basically the production product, the product on production, the one that is live on production is your living prototype, basically. And then you learn from it and iterate on the live product. Whereas in B2B, usually it's not always about the speed of the internal team. It's also a lot about the adoption speed of your customers. Yes. They don't necessarily want you to release every day. And that gives you more air to build a bigger thing, but that also forces you to build a bigger thing and release this bigger thing, and then check after that if this whole big thing actually worked, which forces you to iterate in the design phase and make sure your assumption of what the right thing is solid or becomes solid at the end of the design phase.
Let me make a addition to what you're saying, right? Because I agree fully with you. With B2B, you do not have.
Oh, you can also say like, no, I don't agree.
I agree. The B2B space, you almost never have statistical significance to be able to make decisions based on user behavior. Yeah. So you do depend quite a lot on different types of research practices, which is why we have incorporated that. But I would say also, to make clear, what I'm describing is how do you introduce new innovation, which typically is like new value, which typically is bigger parts. When we are talking about small incremental improvements, those do not go through that type of, hard, lengthy design process. Those are,
How do you do that? Tell me about that.
That is pretty much like a B2C, but then your risk of not having delivered value is less. Then you start seeing more of the pattern of finding, again, because you don't have the statistical significance to actually experiment with the improved variation, you start to do that in a way that does not disrupt the existing journeys. Sometimes you need to have an onboarding experience that comes along with whatever you are releasing to prepare the user for it. So we do that. But we start seeing more of a concentrated interest for changes that would bring an improvement. Or as you know, in enterprise B2B, sometimes the improvement is from a highly valued customer that needs to see that change in their view, even if you do it with a feature flag.
Okay, and then it goes into the building phase, and that is faster now through AI coding. Correct. Do you have any benchmark or any numbers on how much faster?
Well, I can say that in Q4 and now Q1, we delivered massive new value from the same amount of product and engineering team that we've always had. I inherited 150 people. That's the manpower I've had. But if you look at the components that we managed to deliver in comparison between a year ago and now, because I also did that type of assessment, the strategic value we could deliver is massively more influential for what it is that the ICP was expecting of us.
Yeah. And then, of course, keeping in mind that the productivity gain also shifts into some new bottlenecks like review. Okay, QA is much faster now, but like reviewing the code, still thinking about architecture, making sure everything works, that stays the same. Review gets up, like energy and time that goes on review goes up.
One thing to note is that, AI made what was already faster. The hard work has always been the design and has always been the assertion.
And it has always been
The
the what?
design part, right? The technical and the experience design, and has always been also the assertion of what you delivered, aligning with the value you want to be delivering and the quality of it. So those two has always been the slower parts, and they just became slower because now you have, it's as if you have out of a sudden an army of more junior people, more junior engineers to deliver for you. Or if you don't have a senior UX capacity, you may actually have to manage that, right? Because, that excavator we were talking about, it's a difference when you have somebody inexperienced versus somebody who is experienced, how deep they will dig, or how well formed that hole will be, right? So that's what we are seeing. It's not that we, out of a sudden have that much exponential speed across board, but you can move bigger pile of dirt for continuing that paradigm, deliver innovation in a faster pace than what you could do before, as long as you make sure that the design and the assertion still service you.
Wow, thank you. There's so much in this conversation. It's like I'm fascinated. I'm really fascinated. Before I ask my last question, maybe one more question about measuring success. How did you measure the success of the AI adoption? Did you have any metrics up front, or did you start and learn and then figured, oh, this is actually a good way to measure it? And what was the way to measure it, if you measured it? There were many that said, oh, we didn't really measure it. We just knew that this is the new culture that we want to have.
It would be the same as if you would tell me what is the success of using, I don't know, C# versus Java. It's a tool. It's a tool. That has never been the purpose, right? And I think that would be the wrong angle to take. The success is always measured from, in my view, on the outcome. So you sharpen the outcome ambition. You sharpen the KPIs that shows you that you have achieved or not the outcome you were going after, and how fast you can achieve those KPIs.
So it's business KPIs that have to move.
Always. So when you in the beginning of the conversation say, oh, you did, transformation on this and this and this and this axis. Yes, I did. And if you would ask me, would I have done it as fast or as complete without it? Probably I would say, I would probably take longer. Now I simply had the possibility to assert and understand my SCP faster, formulate and, surface and synthesize the learnings from the organization, but also the input we got from analysts, having all that input in so much more efficient way than I had before. That expedited, crystallizing, okay, what is it that we want to be positioning ourselves on, and what is the value we are seeking to deliver, and then is the execution. So it's expediting all these phases in different ways is at the end of the day what helps.
Cool. Thank you. Because there are many rumors about, you measure AI adoption by measuring how many people in your company use AI, like these kind of things. And does it tell me if they use it well, and if the way how they used it really helped the company to succeed with their goals?
I can tell you, it's very, I have been in one of the companies I worked for, they wanted to go from a consulting company to a SaaS vendor. So they wanted to productize their internal tools and deliver those as a platform for their customers. So that was the ask. And of course, at the end of the day, they want to see a portion of their revenue coming from a scalable platform rather than from their consulting business. Remember that these consultants were using those tools, only I elevated them. And it would have been very simple for me to say, I win by removing access to these consultants of these tools, but that would be, faking it, right? So or I would say, you can use the tool and I can still claim the revenue, right? Both would have been foul play from my part. So it's not about who's using what. It's about what exactly, you need to really understand what is the outcome you're going after and be true to that outcome and how you would try to achieve it. You can always manipulate, how to interpret that. And the example I can also say is on the run, right? You can give AI tools and access to data to everybody in the organization, but then you will go after everything to start pulling back data access or GDPR and compliance. Like it's like a nightmare, right? So I can manipulate the metric of AI adoption of how many people in the organization are using it, but I will be manipulating it if I would allow that anarchy.
Yep. And yeah, that's nice. If I would allow that anarchy. Yeah, totally. All right, then let's get to the very final question that I ask everybody, and then let's close the conversation. I could talk to you for hours about this. I want to know more and more details. And anyone who's listening to this, if you want to know more details as well, reach out to Dimitra on LinkedIn, I guess the best way.
Yeah.
LinkedIn is a good way. So ask her everything that you want to know, because there's so much that I still want to know, but we'll get to that at a different time, maybe over a coffee chat.
Love to.
But let me ask you the last question, and it's so well formulated. I always read it out loud. I have it here in front of me. If you were advising a peer starting today, what are the biggest learnings that you'd share with them about adopting AI in the company? And it can be any good thing, any bad thing, like anything that you would share as your biggest learnings.
I would say the first thing is you need to understand what drives this need, but also what drives the resistance. So why is that thing not true? What prevents you from making it true? But also what is it that exactly mean if you make it true? Right? So that is the first thing you need to understand. The second thing I would say is do the product work you always did. Because if you just slap AI everywhere, it doesn't mean that you're going to be building a differentiating product or that you would actually achieve a better positioning for the company or create value for the private equity stakeholders or whomever you are actually trying to create value for. So do the product work always. And don't skip governance is one thing. Because the only thing that you will do if you do that would be to just fail faster. Because you need to undo and carry the cost of the new generation of debt. At some point in the beginning, we talked about sales debt and UX debt and tech debt. Well, this could be your AI debt, and that is a very expensive one because it could actually impact trust of your customers, of the organization, of overall. It's not going to be good news for you.
Figure out what drives the need and also what creates the resistance. Yes. Then the second, do the product work that you always did. Yep. Don't skip that. And third, also don't skip governance. Otherwise, you'd fail faster because you might have to revoke some things that you have just newly introduced, and you call it the AI debt.
Yes.
I like that. You have to own that word, AI debt. Thank you very, very, very much for all of these details. It's like a playbook for AI adoption. That's super cool, like one way how to do it. And also for all the details, is there anything that I haven't asked and that you would like to share?
That there is a moment which you have to prepare for your next move. So I had I used to have a very great coach, and she never asked me, Dimitra, what is it you want to do from your next role? She always asked me, what is it you want to do for the role after this one? I do believe this is the way you need to plot your strategy. Also, as a product leader, I use three horizons for that. So at some point, it triggers you to think, okay, this is the now, this is the next, but what's the next thing after that? And especially in the AI world, you have to understand how you evolve your vision in a market that moves so fast. That would be the thing that I would say definitely advise people to do more.
To think not only about the next move, but the next after the next. That's great advice, and I will take it serious because it just sparked a thought in me like, oh, yes, there is some wisdom in that. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. I appreciate the time and also the opportunity to talk about something that I really, really passionate about.
And I'm very happy that you did that. I learned so much. Thank you.